World Students' Day is observed on October 15th every year. This day is set aside to honor former Indian President Dr. Abdul Kalam's many contributions, especially in the fields of academia and research. This year's theme, If You Fail, Never Give Up, because fail means first attempt in learning. Meanwhile, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, is calling for foundational learning skills to stop learning crisis and improve learning outcomes in primary schools in Nigeria. UNICEF's education specialist, Mrs. Yetunde Oluwatosin, who spoke at a media workshop on foundational literacy and numeracy, has said limited infrastructure, dearth of teachers, now limited learning data, especially on proficiency level, are amongst causes of the problem. Now, joining me to speak on the significance of this day is Femi Adeyeye, Co-Convener Fund Education Coalition. Thank you so much for your time, Femi.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
All right, great. Now let's looking at this year's theme. If you fail, never give up. In what ways do you think the government can encourage students not to fail, and if at all, when they do, not to give up?
All right, not to sound motivational, because what we need presently in Nigeria is way, way beyond motivation. The Nigerian students in Nigeria need the real life and real learning tools, skills that would help them cope with life. So I think that is a point that government, especially in Nigeria, should be looking into way beyond, sloganeering, catchy phrases, and all these very interesting, phrases that we throw around. So in Nigeria today, Nigerian students are actually facing a lot of, problems that the government at this time must take into cognizance. In fact, a state of emergency must be declared in the education sector so that students would not fail even before they start learning. I think that should be the crux of the message, especially at this time in our country.
Now, UNICEF is actually advocating the deployment of digital skills
Yes.
to eradicate learning, and of course, poverty in some countries might hinder all of this. What's your take? And also on that, what do you think? Do you think the current syllabus, particularly in Nigeria, is practical, relatable, and also exciting enough to want to make students stay in school?
All right. I think the syllabus needs to be rejigged because there are quite a number of things that are being taught today that I consider outdated. For example, I am a student of building technology, and I still find some 100 level students still going to class with drawing boards. In these days where they should already be learning Revit architecture, where they should be learning AutoCAD even from 100 level. Nobody sits down with drawing board and drawing sheet and start using pencil anymore. But because we sometimes it's funny the way we like to stick to the old or conventional ways of doing things, and we're not moving with the pace at which the world is moving. But that's not also to throw out the fact that our educational system is actually improving in terms of the kind of quality that we're getting. In as much as we have several inadequacies, including funding. The people who were taught in our universities are the ones saving the health sector in UK, in US. In those schools where you say, oh, medical schools, in Nigeria are not doing so well. But these are the doctors who are going to different places in the world and are helping their economies and their, health sector in general. See, so that's a part we need to. The curriculum must, be rejigged. I agree 100%. And to also talk about digital tools is that what we have presently in Nigeria, we need to talk about reality. Our reality is that we have 13.2 million children out of school. Let's look for a way to get them at least back to the classroom first. That is the reality of Nigeria, where the digital part of it's for me today is like a dream because we still have 13.2 million children that are roaming the streets in
Hmm.
Nigeria. Let's get them back to class. And when we get to the class, then we start discussing how the class can be digital. You
All
know, I
right.
think that is we need to, break the egg before we, start frying it or whatever how they put it. Yeah. So that's what I think. That's my
All right,
opinion.
Femi, before, of course, I let you go, most students have failed severally, some because of lack of proper funding, while others maybe a lack of motivation. I mean, I have a personal story where I remember growing up and I had to, write my O levels quite a couple of times. But if not for motivation on the part of my parents, who kept pushing me, I didn't give up. Now, what do you think can be done, not just by the government, but also private individuals to help encourage students to keep learning in spite of, whatever happens? And how best do you think these students can be celebrated when they do well? We've seen cases where they are presented checks of 10,000 naira, some maybe even
10,000
less,
naira.
after such a wonderful performance. What do you think can be done?
Yeah, it's whole a cocktail of a lot of things that needs to be done. Number one is that government. It actually goes back to government. You cannot isolate government from these things. Private individuals, private sector, and all of that, they will always copy from what government is doing. Government is actually the leading role, has a leading role to play actually in education. Education must be seen as a social service, as an investment in the people. So when government sees it like that, then this private sector people would also see it in that aspect. But if government, does not see education as an investment in the people, and that is why, like the example you gave, why because government does not see it as an investment in the people. That is why our laboratories are where they are. Our universities are in bad states. Our libraries are bad. The motivation even for students, like you said, 10,000 naira for the best graduating students in a particular university 1 year like that, while people go on one very funny reality show and they go home with 120 million naira. So it is about priority. You get, so it has a lot to do with government. Government must set the tone right on education. If it does not, nobody, private sector or not, will see education as a social investment. Private sector will always see it as a profit-making venture. That is it. And that is why you can find different, mushroom universities across every corner now in Nigeria, because private sector people are seeing it as a way to make money. Many of these private schools are below standard. Nobody's checking who teaches what. There are just a lot of things, and that is why I said earlier that the state of emergency must be declared on education. So, in line with the theme of this year's World Students Day, government has a lot of role to play. Private individuals have a role to play, and the motivation that students are going to get is definitely going to come from the philosophy, the guiding philosophy that is, led by the government. Today in Nigeria, we see education as a way of leveling up. If I do not make it, maybe if I go to school, I would, if my parents do not make it, maybe when I go to school, I would definitely make
All
it.
right.
That is the philosophy in our society. We do not see it as a solution provided, philosophy. So government must lead that conversation,
All
and
right.
then we all would follow suit. Yeah,
Femi Adeyeye, Co-Convener, Fund Education Coalition. Thank you so much for your time.
you're welcome. Thank you very much.